Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Ich bin immer noch unsicher, ob ich auf Deutsch und oder auf Englisch sprechen will. Ich habe mich entschieden, ich spreche auf beides, abwechselnd, mal so, damit ich sowohl das lokale Publikum herzlich begrüßen kann, as much as our international guests. Thank you very much for coming. Meine Aufgabe besteht unter anderem darin, zu erläutern, in welchem Zusammenhang diese Veranstaltung stattfindet, weil wir haben ja eine Reihe, die Platz nehmen heißt und die Teil... Aha. Hallo, jetzt sind wir wieder da, weil wir ja eine Reihe haben, die Platz nehmen heißt und die wiederum Teil der Veranstaltung und Interventionen ist, die im Rahmen unserer Plattform Akademie Kunst Öffentlichkeit stattfinden. Das heißt, wir beschäftigen uns immer wieder und auch im Rahmen der Veranstaltungsreihe Platz nehmen mit der Frage, was sind die uns umgebenden Bedingungen, unter welchen Voraussetzungen arbeiten wir als Universität, weil wir als Universität von uns meinen, dass wir eine reflexive oder man könnte sagen rekursive Institution sind, die nicht einfach sich zur Welt verhält, sondern auch zu der Frage, wie die Welt sich zu ihr verhält und auf Basis dieser Grundlage sozusagen sich im öffentlichen Raum positioniert. Das heißt, wir suchen nach Kooperationen, wir suchen nach Interventionen und wir suchen nach Beiträgen zum allgemeinen Diskurs und Platz nehmen ist eines der Formate im Rahmen dessen wir das tun. Heute tun wir das mit gelben Regenschirmen und zwar um auf eine zunehmend autoritäre Entwicklung im Universitätsbereich in verschiedenen Nachbarländern hinzuweisen, in der Slowakei, in Ungarn, in Serbien, aber auch ansatzweise in Polen. Aus diesen 4 Ländern haben wir Gäste und deswegen wechsle ich jetzt. Herzlich willkommen. Kroatien, ja, sprechen wir über Kroatien. Ich bin kein Experte, aber deswegen wechsle ich ins Englische und bedanke mich herzlich bei unseren international guests. Thank you very much for coming, all the 4 guests from Poland, Serbia, from the Slovak Republic and from Hungary. Und übergebe hiermit in English language the microphone to Andreas Spiegel, who is the organizer of this Platz nehmen event, head of the Senate and member of the Institut für Kunst- und Kulturwissenschaften. Thank you very much for all the preparation. Thank you very much to everyone being here and taking this little walk, this little city walk, this little political city walk with us. And particular extra special thanks, last but not least, to Georg Schöllhammer, der moderieren, begleiten, erläutern wird und Teil der Veranstaltung ist. Also in diesem Sinne, das Mikrofon geht an Andreas.
Hello also from my side. Johann Hartle, our rector, already outlined the background, the political background, speaking about repressive politics. He already spoke about repressive politics concerning universities all over Europe. And to make that clear, it's not just concerning our guests here, from, as Johann said, from Serbia, Hungary, Poland, Slovakia, but also Austria. To remind you, a few months ago, before the actual government, let's say, decided for the coalition, they outlined also a program for the government, also addressing the universities. And it was frightening, this program, just half a year ago, more or less, where it was very clear. So there are only 2 sexes left. So the end of gender studies, critique on any form of sciences, denying climate change, global developments, being, let's say, really having I would not call it a critique of the arts, but even disrespecting the arts and their contribution to society, even here in Austria. And we just can say, lucky us, 3 parties decided to found another government. But you can say the seed is spread around and still there. So the danger is not gone, you can say it's postponed practically. And so more, it's not just that we have our guests and colleagues around here to speak about those politics, but knowing that we are also confronted with the same endangerment of the freedom of sciences and arts. So to make that very clear, we're all more or less sharing the same concerns, but being confronted with the effects differently. And so more we can, unfortunately to say so, learn from our colleagues who are confronted with those politics really in a brutal manner, in a way. And we will walk through the city just for, let's say, all in all 2 hours more or less, visiting 3 different places that have associatively a relation between Austria and those countries. And there we will also have then one of our colleagues speaking actually about the situation in their countries, in the universities. And we have, thankfully, we are also honored and pleased to have Georg Schöllhammer around as our moderator. And please also feel free, if you have questions or comments, also to contribute it to those things. And I just want to mention again, so Edith Andras, standing right in front, thank you so much for your coming. We're really pleased to have you around. Eva Majewska, here also, thank you so much. Anna Vilenica, and Anders Schäferfalli, from Bratislava, also welcome and great that you found time and to build up something like a network maybe, and at least to articulate something that we could call solidarity in that sense. Because the one thing is, what does it mean to be confronted nation-wise with those politics, and how could a network and solidarity help us somehow also facing the coming years with the budget decrease to actually resist those movements. And to add something else, even if you have students around, the same tendency we have them already right now in the Austrian law, especially in the University Act called Universitätsgesetz, where it's make very clear that studying means you should study as quick as possible, don't lose time, and try to get in and out as fast as possible. So it's not studying in the sense to develop something like criticality, but to study in order to complete your certificate or to get your certificate, which is actually not studying. And there's also another danger now, even with the actual government we have, also saying, so we are expecting budget decreases. And so the question is, so how to finance universities? And there's also another announcement which is a bit dangerous, because they say one of the arguments whom to finance and in which dimension based on the need of the labor market. And if you make studying depending on the labor market and the needs of labor market, then the next question is, okay, what does that mean for all the disciplines we are responsible for? Humanities, all those things from sociology, arts, philosophy. Who needs that in relation to a labor market? So even there you can say, lucky us, but at the same time the clouds are already there. And we will speak about those things and the similarities or differences then on those locations, and somehow trying to learn from one another. And by that, I can say welcome again to all of you who found time and will join us for our walk. And the weather is with us, so I hope it will be an enjoyable way through the city. Thank you and enjoy our walk together.
So I'd invite you to use the time where we walk to encounter personally and maybe address more direct questions and more peer-to-peer questions to each other, because I think the technology does not really allow us to have a guided tour while walking. So please follow us. Yeah.
Ja, ihr fliegt danach.
Ja, wenn wir irgendwo hingehen, kann man das Boden lassen. Und Boden, ja, ist sonst irgendwie ja, blöd.
Probieren sozusagen in Richtung ohne Investitionsrechnung und so weiter. Das steht dann nämlich auch drin. Also da ist sozusagen zu drin. Der politische Plot stimmt, da ist vorher. Das passt schon, aber das andere, das passt natürlich gar nicht. Das widerspricht.
Ja, aber ist alles gut gegangen heute, weil ich glaube, wir sind um 2
Vielleicht ist, weil noch nichts Persönliches da ist. Ja, Jemand davor und sagt jemand nicht.
Ich habe durchgeschaut, das Video, und mir ist sonst kein
Ja, das habe ich natürlich geteilt. Ich wollte mich ja auch Deutsch lassen. Und was geschafft? Also, ich wusste, dass ich Deutsch. Und was gesagt? Nein, indem ich mich nicht nur über das allgemeine mit Leuten, sondern auch speziell zu spielen gedacht habe. So, in der Akademie vielleicht ein bisschen aber ich glaube, so mittelfristig und langfristig wird sicher toll.
viele Menschen dann
Even though this well before. I was never there before. But
Schillerplatz gehabt, aber das war mir dann doch irgendwo.
Ja. Ja, das auf jeden Fall. Also auch cool, ich habe mich auch schon angefangen für solche Sachen zu bewerben. Soll das so? Schade eigentlich.
Er hat sich auch gewundert, weil dann war ich gleich Kräfte, aber ich sage, nein,
and the quotes on the side of the building. You see the traces of the letters still on the facade. So
und einmal ist die Nähe abgehauen oder? Achtung! Das ist jetzt die Ablösung, aber der Aussehen war gar nicht so stark. Ja, ich wollte es in der Nähe.
Ja, aber sozusagen, wo ist es so eigen?
6 Monate gewohnt.
Yeah. I just try to, you know, if I have, I'm just, yeah. So don't worry.
Oder halt einfach Genau.
We are now talking about Serbia and why. We'll hear from Andreas Spiegel. Why we are here, we will hear from Andreas Spiegel.
Very shortly, because just last year, the students from Serbia used their bikes in order to simply go with the bike through Europe, and precisely they stopped here for the first gathering. And so we thought that's the appropriate place for our first meeting. And I was told today that even the folk singer, the popular song used there, but maybe you can tell it better. It's a gathering here.
Yes, recently, like a few days ago, Halid Bešlić, which is one of the famous folk Yugoslav singers, passed away, and a lot of people from Yugoslav diaspora gathered actually on this spot to kind of like a vigil to pay tributes, and they kind of like all sang in choir the songs of this singer. But do you want me to continue?
Maybe. Well, that's it's always good to know about hidden maps of solidarity that are unfolding with protests in the city, and that's why we are here partly. And it's because of the students actually have been the driving force between the uprisals against more and more authoritarian reign of the Serbian government, and we hear a lot about that because of, I think, partially there is the will that Serbia would join the European Union, would stay at least pro-Western, and that's why we get more news about the changes. We get more news about the political changes as well, because of the tension between the Serbs, the Bosnian Kosovars, and Bosnia-Herzegovina is really an issue that is always been visible in Austria. It's less visible what this policy means for universities, and I think it's really important to learn about because of the policy is not just an authoritarian policy, but it is well a cultural policy that is deeply really disturbing very emancipatory university landscape in Serbia.
Thank you so much. So we read that I will shortly introduce myself before I start. So my name is Ana Vilenica. I'm a research fellow at the University of Belgrade Institute for Philosophy and Social Theory, and I'm also a co-investigator on a project based on Södertörn University in Sweden. I am with the different hats involved in different struggles, both like in the university, on the level of neighborhoods, and also in the cultural sector. For me it's a bit funny, you know, like this is like a space of gathering of Yugoslav diaspora, so to say, but speaking under the arm of Maria Terezia. I come from the northern part of Serbia, and that was a colony of Austro-Hungary. Also seems a bit weird. And I also want to say that I really appreciate the format. Many years ago, when I did my master's in stage design, I developed this project called Tourist Agency that was was focused on introducing these insurrectionary histories that are kind of like hidden and not, you know, in these histories of Big I. And I was also giving this kind of guided tours to make people remember, you know, like some particular events that took place in different cities, especially in Vojvodina, where I come from. Anyways, let me say something about what's going on in Serbia. I will not presume that you know a lot, so I will kind of like start from the beginning. Let's say on November 1st, there was this like horrible thing that happened. The canopy of the railway station in Novi Sad that was recently reconstructed, and many millions of euros were spent on its reconstruction as a part of this, let's say, regeneration project and building this kind of new railway connection with Subotica, and then when Hungary collapsed and killed 16 people. And for the people in Serbia, this was a symptom. This was a harsh symptom of what has been happening in the past more than 10 years under the regime of Serbian Progressive Party that kind of infiltrated all the spheres of the public sector, privatized institutions, and started using them for their own gains. I like to call them a kind of like the regime of those who collaborate. So their goal is to open space for the international capital to kind of profit on the lands of peripheries, in this case of Serbia, and also have you know, their private interests met. The canopy of the train station collapsed due to this corruption, the widespread corruption that kind of inhabits. It's a structural corruption, and it's also part of this kind of like processes of peripheralization and neo-colonialism that exist on the European continent and also broader. That creates this kind of, let's say, regimes, and in particular the regimes, authoritarian regimes that collaborate with, let's say, the core countries and with institutions such as the European Union and. Okay. I'm sorry if you didn't hear me. Yes, so as a reaction to this, the students, the people started gathering in the streets of Novi Sad and around Serbia, showing a red bloody hand to say you have blood on your hands, that this is actually the result of how the state was captured by this regime, collaborative regime, and to pay tribute to the people that were killed under the canopy as a result of this regime. As a part of this, students from Faculty of Dramatic Arts in Belgrade also organized a small vigil, 15 minutes of silence. At that moment, 15 people were dead. One was to follow a bit later, one dead. And during these 15 minutes of silence, they were attacked by the people who were later to be proved were like the thugs of the regime. Very soon afterwards, students started occupying the university. They blocked the University of Dramatic Arts. And started using direct democracy to manage their occupation. They kind of used the experience of the occupations of the university and the plenums that happened some years before in Croatia, and it was to follow that the majority of the universities and faculties in Serbia started blockades, and in time they created this amazing federal system of decision making. So each university has their own plenums on which they decide collectively, and I don't know what's happening. Okay. And they created the kind of like system in which they decide together based on direct democracy. There were other protests before, and people in Serbia tried to get rid of this regime and this situation before, but what usually happened was that there was this kind of taking overs of the movements by the so-called opposition and so on. So with the direct democracy, students managed to create the system that gained the trust of the people. So the students de facto became the leaders of these movements, and they started organizing blockades, street blockades, protests, 15, 16 minutes of silences in the street. They started bringing people in Serbia together. And here, just a little while ago, we talked about, like how, there is many people in the country that don't know what's going on because they are under influence of the ruling media that spread a certain kind of ideology, and if they don't have some kind of like direct contact with people, they don't get the information about what's going on. So students also created the working groups. One of these working groups is like a student in every village. So students are going literally to every place, every village in Serbia to talk to people and to explain what's going on. When the occupation started, students started with the 4 basic demands. One of these demands was to publish all the documentation related to the reconstruction of the railway station and punish those who were responsible. To nowadays, this didn't happen. Also, they asked for all the people who were responsible for the attacks of students to be punished, and all the students who got arrested during this movement to be freed. And there was also one specific demand related to the student to the university, and that was like an increase of 20% of finance for the universities. For I don't know, 11 months now, students have been organizing to create also this broader front some working groups of students managed to create the social front, bringing people from different areas of society, like, I don't know, like medical workers, miners, teachers together to connect and try to work together in this situation, which is very significant because something like this didn't happen, you know, like for more than 30, 40 years now. What I want to say is that when we say about the protest in Serbia, so it's not just the street mobilization and it's not student movement that are, you know, like that's happening only among the students. It's like a broader movement bringing many aspects and many spheres of the society together in a mutual struggle that is trying to take back the captured state. So the basic demands from students was actually very reformist, so to say. They asked for the institutions to do their work, but in this situation, this you know, like demands also become revolutionary because it's not possible in this kind of regime for the institutions to actually do their work, and this is something that was proved across the time in this almost a year for how long these protests are taking place. Also, at the beginning of the protests, many teachers, deans of universities supported the student struggles and student demands, and for this they were also punished by the ruling regimes. So at the beginning, you know, the regime took this kind of strategy of ignoring the protest, but also speaking really bad, you know, like about people and the teachers who were involved in the struggle. So this led to a series of horrible events, like many students were run over by cars during the silence in the streets or during the protests with serious physical injuries. The dean of the University of Novi Sad got stabbed on the street by an angry woman that later explained was enraged because of the propaganda that she was listening. So there was a lot of like really bad things happening, but after it proven that this strategy is actually not working, and the movement is getting bigger and stronger, and it's actually getting, you know, like to people in every village. They started punishing university in different ways. So one of the punishments was introducing this new systematization of work, because in the universities teachers have like 50-50 teaching and research, and they introduced a new systematization where they gave teachers 12.5% time for research, and that meant, because the universities were under blockade and they couldn't teach, that they had to they receive 150 euro salaries basically, because they can only do 12.5% of their time in the situation in which you cannot really do other parts of your job. They also started preparing a new law on higher education that was introducing like totally insane things, for instance, they wanted to introduce a voucher system that was taken, you know, like from the dictatorships as an example, in which you know, the state would give a student a voucher, and then the student would be able to decide if he wants to go to the private university or to the public university. And that was like really a measurement against the public university as the, you know, like let's say only one of the few left institutions in Serbia that actually kept its autonomy throughout these horrible years that we went in this so-called process of transition. So many teachers, researchers, and people employed in higher education started also coming together. So many different forms of organizing emerged. So I'm part of the University in Rebellion, where university teachers, researchers, and assistants working in education came together and formed an initiative to fight against these attacks on the autonomy of the university. Also in Novi Sad, they formed a free university where teachers and people employed in higher education organized protest and try to stand organizedly in the struggle with the students. So one of the, let's say, one of the longest and most complicated actions that was organized by a university in rebellion was 70 days of blockade of one of the main streets in Belgrade, where the university employees demanded for these measurements to be dropped, and for the special working group that was formed to work on this new law to be kind of dismantled, and some of these demands were actually met, while the other ones still stay in power. So yes, after many months of struggle, and actually ignoring the regime. So the students at the beginning didn't want to kind of pinpoint at the president or the party. You know, they just wanted the institutions to do their work. But after many months, it became very clear that this is not going to happen under this regime. So one of the basic demands now of the students is to get snap elections. So everybody is now pushing for the snap elections. At some point also, students called for the spread of the direct democracy in the Serbian society, based on the local municipalities that are kind of like interesting. It's very interesting. It's like kind of like units that we had for self-management in the Yugoslav systems that are now again taken back by the people in struggle, by, you know, like my neighbors. I'm part of one of these local assemblies in a local community called Center in Pančevo, which is one city next to Belgrade, where I come together with my neighbors to talk about how to support this struggle and how to implement the experience of organizing with the direct democracy in the society to come. So I think this is a very important revolutionary moment, and I don't know, like I traveled to many countries and learned about many people's struggles, but I've actually never seen anything like this, and I think it's very important struggle from which all of us could be learning. Recently, when I was writing about the anti-extractivist movement in Serbia, that's like kind of like my major topic of interest, I coined this term periphery in movement, just to be able to, you know, like I kind of got in conversation with the theorists and thinkers and the people from the movements from Latin America, that they have these like societies and movement, to just give a possibility of Eastern European movement to have a propositionality, because this movement in Serbia has a very strong propositionality. It's proposing direct democracy as a way to go further from this situation. It suggests blockade as a way, you know, like to stop so periphery can move forward. So this is, you know, like something that I would like to see all of us thinking about. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Anna, for your optimistic tone. Actually, I would imagine that in other countries that we're going to listen to, the tone is far more, so to say, skeptical and pessimist, and it's good as well to see that there is a resonance, or at least an echo of Yugoslav experiences that seem to be somehow corroded or forgotten in the transformation period after the decline of Yugoslavia. They are all reverberated from time to time, mainly as well in the humanities and in the political theory, but they are not really taken seriously. So to see that the students again trying to go back to that kind of direct action, to really going to the villages, and so is a very positive sign for me. I have question concerning you said already that there is pressure to the protesters in the university as well in the teaching personnel, but it seems that this pressure is more a pressure against activists than it is a structural pressure against, so to say, the syllabi, that what is taught, then, and so on, and that the change of personnel is not so far as we will hear later on in other regions. Is that already going on?
Yes, certainly. Like in many universities, like people's contracts have not been like renewed. Other people's have been under such pressures that they had to resign. So I mean, this has been happening in many universities. In University of Novi Pazar, I don't know, in many universities. So the pressures are actually enormous. And in terms of like topicality. So the newest fantastic thing that they came up with is that they want to dismantle the Faculty of Philosophy in Niš. So they came up with this idea of Serbian studies because, you know, like they're the dominant culture of the of those who occupied Serbia is, I would say, turbo-fascism 2.0. You know, like it's not the turbo-fascism from the 90s, but it's not, you know, like anything specially new. It's just a bit renewed. So they are planning to take like some cathedrals from the Faculty of Philosophy and practically dismantle them because of this and put them into this like new university that's very identitarian, in which you know, like you learn something about the Serbian culture but also like Russian language. So it's like really incredible what they are doing. Yeah, there are multiple other things, but yeah, I think
but maybe you have questions. I mean, concerning this, creating new institutions and trying to actually decapitate old institutions. I think Edith will talk more detailed in how that happened in Hungary. But I would like to, we will fall out of time if we talk too long, but I would like to open for maybe 2 or 3 questions.
I'm going to speak loudly.
No, you have to, Afia.
And you have to come
loudly anyway. So thank you so very much for this very touching and very beautiful presentation about some movement that resembles, in my eyes, very much to the Solidarity movement in Poland in 1980 and 81. You know, this kind of very grassroots, also rebuilding the sense of everyday people, common people, to be entitled to decide about what politics is about, how we want to live, how we want to have those institutions and other forms of organizing done. But I'm very curious about international alliances. Like, is there any support from abroad that, you know, the protest could count on? Do you have any perspective on building some more stable connections just to sustain the movement? Thank you.
Well, I think this one is a bit about it, and I'm eager to hear what else.
Yeah, no, there has been, I mean, I think that there is multiple answers to this question, because like how people like perceive this in media or like broadly is a part of like geopolitical constellations in which Serbia is like only one element. So for instance, if you ask someone from Germany, yeah, they will say that they have no idea what's going on in Serbia because the German is interested in Serbian lithium, and you know, like the government is actually providing this entrance to the corporation as Rio Tinto that wants to extract lithium and you know, like destroy one of the most like fertile lands in Serbia and remove people from there. And or if you ask like people from Austria, they know a little bit, you know, like what's going on. So it's a part of a kind of like a geopolitical constellation. And I would say also the support is in a way affected by this geopolitics. There has been like letters of solidarity that the international community of university professors, teachers, researchers have been signing. There has been, you know, like conversations about the situation in Serbia organized. I also partook in some of them, mostly in the European countries, also here in Austria. but I wouldn't say that it's a kind of like a wider understanding of the importance of this situation for all of us, because this is like a testing ground, you know, like this is something that is awaiting all of us in all the countries, you know, like you're seeing what's happening in US. And if you also looked at the deeper peripheries, you would see how this was cooked before, and maybe people, you know, could be a bit more prepared to answer these situations. So yeah, I mean, more or less, this is how I see it.
Thank you, Anna. Any further questions? So, I mean, this actual. Sorry, yeah, that's fine.
I wanted to ask, because you mentioned that previous or like self-organizing.
Closer to the light.
Sorry. So previous self-organizing movements were like hijacked by political parties, but now that the students are pushing for pre-elections, so is there someone who could, some party who could pick up this and like turn it into something where it's going to be Nepal?
No, this is a very important question. So when the movement started, so now I'm missing the English word, ogradili, so they kind of like made a red line, you know, like against the political parties and also organizations that have pretension to become like a political actors in that sense. And that was a precedent, you know, like that never happened before, and that actually made the whole movement explode and grow and gain the trust of the people. So now we are in this situation that the students are calling for the election, and actually the student also proposed the so-called student list, in which we still don't know who is going to be on this list, but this is going to be some kind of transitionary solution. As many people, you know, like, and this was debated across Serbia in different universities, and the decision who is going to be on this list is made collectively by the entire movement of students. So we are waiting to see for this list to be publicized. They're keeping it still secret because this is how crooked the regime is working. You know, if they publicized the names earlier, the regime would make sure that they destroy the reputation of each and every one of them, because this is what they are doing with the teachers, with the people in struggle, with the students. I mean, if this is going to be my closing argument, I will just say like something about what's going on at this particular moment. So we just found out that one student from the agricultural faculty, she was taken by the police. She was put a bean bag on her head. She was beaten in the police station, and many students are arrested. Many of them are in jail. The others are in house arrest, and they are all kept. It's not that I really trust in legality in this kind of situation, but illegally. I mean, even in those frames of legality that this system is giving us at the moment. And because all of you are kind of like involved with art and culture, I want to say also something about this. So at the moment, the National Theatre of Serbia is closed. The regime, and this is something that they are doing systematically, like changing the staff, and this is what I mentioned in the university, with their own managerial cadre. So in the National Theatre, as the president of the managerial board, they put a person who is the leader of paramilitary units, during the war in 90s, White Eagles, and he also changed the conduct code in the National Theatre, in which he wants to prevent people working in the National Theatre to speak about politics or show any political signs on the stage, because people in the theaters, people in arts have been in solidarity with students, and this is a common struggle. They have been like ending their performances with the bloody palm or with the messages, political messages in these past 11 months of the struggle. So now everybody's kind of preparing for a new big gathering that's going to happen in Novi Sad on the 1st of November. It's going to be 1 year from the collapse of the canopy. Many people, many students are organizing to actually walk from the very far down places of Serbia. And this is going to be a symbolical moment and I guess some kind of like change in relationship to what has currently been going on due to the fact that students also after the summer came back to the universities to be able to keep the status of the students and give their exams. So they are actually now having exams like every 2 or 3 weeks to be able to keep their status of students.
So thank you, Anna, for bringing already in the beginning all the power and emphasis of protest and another dissolution to the project. Let's walk to the next station.
Ja, keine Ahnung. Überraschung sein. So. Ich kann auch Nein, das ist schon sehr speziell. Ja.
Just now when we left?
Yeah,
no, we just introduced and then we started and this was the first stop. So the first start.
Du rufst mich her. Claudia? Vanessa? Tschüss. Kidding.
Aber sie spricht auch sehr fließend. Sie muss auch so reden.
And so the book was like practically theoretical, So I started to write like a queer theory of state because I discovered that if we don't take the state seriously, we cannot also make it accountable. So there is, a logical connection between making it accountable.
Yeah, because I was studying this one guy from Serbia. Okay.
Some underground Echt?
Seriously? Because like the father was sent to jail over again, doing the. I don't have this fear, you know what I mean? It's like, for me, the contact with this very repressive arm of the state, very caring, because I'm speaking of the caring from the empire.
In any case, totally the last point. This is such a blasé guy, so takes it
because of the lifestyle. There was this very grand stereotype.
But yeah, it is not Budapest problem, but the villages, even the poorest people, they are faced through urban.
It may be not by coincidence that if you would ask an Austrian about the Emperor Joseph I, he would be confused and think about Joseph II, and that is maybe because of Joseph I was one of the most authoritarian empires. But Andreas will tell us more about this. That's why we are here.
Also very short, so behind is the monument of Joseph I. And you can say this is a double problem that we're confronted here, because he was the one, as Georg just said, the most reactionary Caesar, the Kaiser, as a response to actually the wars with Napoleon, with France. And so in order to unify, he even became trying to install a more stronger monarchy in the regime. Actually fueling already this, at the same time, attempts of something of nation building. So from Hungary starting to all the others as well. And it was especially the situation with Hungary, then with Kaiser Franz Joseph II, who have been pushed to, instead of being Kaiserlich Königlich, Kaiserlich und Königlich, so be Caesar and king, and by that acknowledging something like the nationalism of Hungary. And so in that sense we can say we have here a monument with two problems at once. So a horrible empire on the one side, and nationalism, which the consequences that we are facing now is on the other side at once. And so more asking.
You always have to remember that at least the bourgeois nationalism had an emancipatory idea behind it, which is not so much happening in the current, so to say, capitalist nationalism. And I'm happy to introduce Edith Andras because of what we've heard from Serbia was partly true in the very beginning of the Orban years, but as small drops of protest, I would say, when something happened there and there and there. And the Orban regime, I think, understood to act much more smoothly in hiding these protests. But Edith, you will tell us, and maybe you say a few words about yourself as well.
Hello everybody, I'm Edith András. I'm an art historian from Budapest. I am a senior researcher of the AX, Institute of Art History of Hungarian Academy of Sciences. Not anymore is the name. It's even difficult to follow what is the name. So when Georg said that not everybody will be that optimistic, he most probably referred to me, and it is not just because of the age difference between Eve and me, so I cannot offer you this feverish level revolutionary optimism, and I would phrase how the Hungarians feel now is the phrase which I will borrow from the Nobel Prize Hungarian person László Krasznahorkai, that this is the melancholy of resistance, which is the characteristic in Hungary. And if Eve said that in Serbia this is 11 months, and after me it will be András with Slovakia, which is 1.5 years, in Hungary it is 15 years, 15. So which means that whole new generations were socialized under this regime. So what I thought I would give you not some parts, but a big picture about what did happen, and because it is the longest and also the most meticulous regime. So I used to use a metaphor to make it understand, and this is from the Spielberg movie. I do not know whether this generation knows about it or not. This is the Close Encounter of the Third Kind. And in this, for those who do not know this movie, the first encounter when the extraterrestrial, the UFOs, show up, they just look around, because these close encounters are expressed from the side of the observer. The observer just saw that they showed up, sighting, looking around, but not really encounter. This first phase was in Hungary from 2010 to 2014. The first course. What did happen? Retrospectively thinking back, if we would like to make a typology, the scene of visual art scene was attacked. Why especially visual art? Why it is so important? I just have to say, most probably because this is the weakest link. Weakest link, at least in Hungary, because this is so verbal culture. It is so around literature and not around contemporary art, for example. So the first movement, the first measure was merging the Museum of Fine Art and the Hungarian National Gallery, which is a quite strange move, as you can imagine, that a nationalist government doesn't want to have a special museum for national culture. And then the next one, a parallel, and this is very important, they created parallel institutions. And about the process, I have to say that it was very, very slow, step by step, totally different from the other speaker, step by step, and attacking at a moment just one segment of the society. What was the consequence of this? That all the other parts of the society thought, okay, this is happening with visual art, they are not good enough for anything, but it will not happen with us. So that was a very cruel and at the same time devilishly clever method, because totally killed solidarity. What did happen after this merging the two museums? A parallel institution was established, Hungarian Art Academy. This is not the same as the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, which is in this year 200 years, and that had an establishment and reputation. This was actually a private community of friends, ultra-conservative, and they got everything, money and buildings, and they simply oversee all the appointments, direction, everything. The next step was taking over the Kunsthalle, the venue of contemporary art, taking over this new institution. And then Ludwig Museum, and this was, all the events was followed with protest. An Occupy movement, for example, on the stairs of Ludwig. The reason was that the appointment of the new director was not transparent. So the protesters wanted to have autonomy, and this was allowed, and they did not deal with it. And later on, still that director became the director who was appointed by the government. That many things happened that I even have to use my notes not to forget about something. Yes, as I said, visual art. And in 2013, they had a new law about Act of Museums, which means that a museum director doesn't have to have special education. It could be anything. So from that very moment, if we could check all the museums, it doesn't have to be specialized on art. Could be a manager who is, for example, from the Ministry of Culture. And yes, so this was the first focusing on contemporary art, and I have to say that when the contemporary art scene felt that lost all the venues where could be shown, at the same time, for example, writers or poets did not have any problem with having events in Kunsthalle, because they did not fear that this is start of a longer and much deeper process. So the second phase in the ufology, the close encounter of the second kind, is when the UFOs will leave physical traces. So we could say that this was in 2014 until 2018, and this is when they started to hegemonize the public space. In which way? It was both square nearby the parliament totally reconstructed. In front of the parliament, they totally ruined the original scenery. If you would go to Budapest recently, the spectacle which you can see in front of the parliament is what the square had in 1944, before the end of the war. And the explanation was it was in line with the official rhetoric, namely that after the Nazi occupation until the end of the Soviet occupation, that period is illegitimate. Illegitimate, does not exist, cut out from history. We did not exist, not those people, not those physical evidence. So it is a kind of time travel. We traveled back to the interwar period. And then the second square, which was reconstructed, a nearby square named Freedom Square, where still is the last Soviet monument. You do know that after the political changes, all the Soviet monuments were cleared off and set aside in quarantine, a kind of purification of the public space, except one. And that was a problem for the regime. And this is a big obelisk, which was a memorial dedicated to the big, great defending war. And with a huge, actually, 5-point star, which is a forbidden symbol. Why could it stay there? Because there is an international agreement that all those monuments under which there are buried people, soldiers, could not be removed. And later on, these remnants, human remnants, were moved, but still it would have been a political diplomatic problem to remove this monument, because then there, for example, it was an agreement. If they would remove that, then, for example, the Hungarian monument in the Soviet Union would be removed as well. So how could you demolish a monument if not physically? I used to say this gesture as a conceptual iconoclasm. And the conceptual iconoclasm was that on the opposite side of this monument, over the night, they erased a monument. The name of it is to the victims, all victims of German occupation. And this was outrageous and was a huge protest, which is actually still continuing, so-called living monument. Living monument because this, if you do remember that what is the phrase in the new constitution, that the period between the Nazi occupation and Soviet, this is illegitimate, then that monument, and here is the monument of German occupation, Then the other, symbolically, would be understood as the Soviet occupation, right? So this is what I would name conceptual iconoclasm. And the last phase on the, so this was the physical, yes, and all the squares was reconstructed, and this was the time when they started to attack high education. 2017 is the lax CEU, and they started to attack Soros and this institution. And when I'm speaking about invasion of the public space, totalizing and creating a hegemonic public space, it is also showed up the huge billboard with official propaganda. And they started to attack in different periods, different peoples, because this fear-mongering was one of the politics, finding enemies, and all the time new and new enemy offered for the population. This time it was Soros, and then nowadays it is Brussels, later on the migrants. So all the time there are actual enemies to keep this fear constantly alive. The third encounter, the encounter of the third kind is in the ufology, is a direct contact with the UFOs. What did happen? That was the time when the regime turned towards not just higher education, but science and any kind of knowledge production. So then it was all the time after the political changes that they wanted to get out research institution from the umbrella of the academy. So first they created a separate new institution for the research institution. What was the goal? That they were taken out from the traditional autonomy of academy, and the board was consisted of loyalists. But it was not enough. In the last phase, which we are now, which is the close encounter of the fourth kind, this does not exist, the traditional classical ufology. I would name this fourth kind as a total invasion. We are now in this period, total invasion. It would be very difficult to name one single segment of the society which is not under the total control. In this last period, all the other museums were centralized. Centralization is as a main category. Under the Hungarian National Museum was enlisted many other small museums. So now we do have some museum Führers, so to say. It was Tamás Gáspár Miklós who used this phrase, in some gigantic museums, while other museums are totally starved. They are simply, does not have any money or basic possibilities to survive. In this last period, what happened with the universities? It was very tricky, because they said that it is simply a neoliberal obligatory process, that those state universities had to be privatized. This is how it is happening in other countries, which we follow, and under the rhetoric of privatization, they simply created foundations and boards, and the boards were absolutely loyalist to the regime. So through these boards, the regime could control who is appointed to a certain position, what is the curriculum, what subject you can learn. Of course, not gender, it was comme il faut. So it was first the gender department which was denied. And all those absolutely useless discipline, like for example art history, it is only useful for art for the art market, but anyway, all the humanities are totally useless people, if you wouldn't know. And they separated the two fields, and now once again the research institutions once again had a new name. One cannot even follow anymore. They have a new name, and the hard sciences and humanity separated. Hard sciences are strongly supported, and the humanities now put under the umbrella of university. It is very recent, very fresh. We do not know what will happen, how will they operate. Nobody really knows it. So at this very moment, as I showed, in the public space there is a total hegemony, and all the other fields are totally centralized and under the very strict control. So I cannot be that optimistic. The only good thing I can say, as I started, that a wonderful Hungarian writer got the Nobel. If I have to say in one word, what is he writing, or what happened? His voice is very apocalyptic, very, very apocalyptic. So the time reached out, the time could catch up with this writer. So now he is a realist. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Edith, for this story of a long project that seems to have turned from, let's say, the melancholy of resistance to reality of an existence, so to say, autocratic regime that has structured almost all society. And what I found very important, the public space was part of that restructuring. But on the other hand, there is visible, and you talked about that, like in our preparation meeting, that there is a kind of a colonial experience going on as well. So it does not stop somehow in the borders of the state, but it is crossing the borders of the state to ethnic minorities in Slovakia or in Romania. They are getting their churches. On the other hand, the Buddha is privatized, and private investors can disrupt history. So there is always a kind of dialectics visually going on in public space. And I found this very important, that it is not just stopping with personal, but as well involving public space. That started when?
So I would say in the second, because the close encounter of the second kind is about leaving physical traces. So they probably did have the plot of this movie, and they followed it closely. So, and the last, I forgot to tell that the last monument totally corresponds with what you just said. This was built in 2020 and named Memorial of National Alliance. As we do know, this was the 100th anniversary of Trianon. Of course, Trianon is not mentioned. It is just an alliance with our people. But on this monument, it is a very, very tricky monument. If I may give an advertisement now, I just wrote an essay about this one monument which just came out at Radlich in a book, Geopolitics. And I argue for that with the effect that even the visual message is stronger than the obvious one, that on the walls you can read all the names of the cities and villages of the 1913. This was before it is the onset of the First World War, and it was a very, very harsh Magyarization. So every village had a Hungarian name, even if it had a majority of Slovakians or Serbians or Croatians, had a Hungarian name. These names are on the walls, like on Mayalin's memorial, but there are people, and here are these names. And here, if one would like to analyze this, the hidden message is this motivation being an important empire in Central Europe. So it is even expressed, even if very hidden, in the public space. But as Georg said, while, for example, the National Heritage Institution is abolished, we are eager to reconstruct churches, castles outside of Hungary, in Transylvania, I do not know whether in Serbia, but definitely in Vojvodina, and in Slovakia. But in Hungary, inside, you can do anything what you would like to have with the historical buildings. They are just free praise, I would say.
So both of you ended with capitalism. That was at least a common signifier. But I would allow just one question, because of the sun is following that strange story of freezing here, and we might move to a more sunnier place.
Thank you so much for giving this overview. I just want to clarify that I was just speaking about the last year of our resistance and struggle, and this regime is in power from 2012. And we went a long way to get here, and many things like correspond, especially this, historical revisionism processes and so on. But I wanted to ask you something about the resistances. I mean, I know because I myself is, for instance, a no border person. I was participating in many actions in Hungary before the wall was built and so on. So could you just give us a bit of an overview in regards to this periodization that you made, like how did the resistance evolve?
Yeah. Yes, thank you, absolutely. So sporadic, I would say that sporadic resistance happened in Hungary, not like in Slovakia, as you will hear. So when the Kunsthalle was given to Hungarian Art Academy, then, for example, artists in every month organized exhibition, which was a kind of protest exhibition during a year. Or this was the Occupy Ludwig as well, and then they could not get when they absolutely did not sit even with them to negotiate, then they made a symbolic performance to close down the Ministry of Culture. So that time, but it was just the visual artists, actually led by artists, free artists. It was an organization. In the second phase, then this living memoriam, that was a huge kind of movement, and also exists until recently, what was the reason? That this monument denied the Holocaust. So many people overnight took memorabilia and protested. So much so that this monument wasn't even inaugurated. So this living monument is kind of still exists, but also addresses just a part of the society. And then the last big movement was when they wanted to privatize, kind of put under foundation the University of Theatre and Film. And then was a huge protest movement, and this was the most heroic, and even had international support, very strong international support, and they simply did not, they could not get any result, and also the government simply at a point closed it, and that's it. So, and now I would say that this is the melancholy of resistance, no resistance, because everybody just exhausted, totally exhausted, and because it was a clever, slow, step-by-step, very patient politics, simply killed out this alliance, killed out solidarity, and there is this total exhaustion, and at the same time there is this constant anger in the society and tension because of this fear-mongering. I'm sorry.
So, I think we move on.
Oh yeah, you're right. That's true. We have to save her one. You already announced your next lecture or event on Monday.
Oh, that Monday.
No, it's tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the other one's 2 months later. But yeah, they're all together. We were at the sculpture like
perspective, it was like helping people to, maintain some skill.
It's not far.
So now we are at our final spot here. And interestingly, it's one that was not planned, because actually we wanted to go to the parliament, which you will find there on the other side of the ring. And somehow we have been displaced because there's right now a meeting by the government, and if that takes place in the government, then there is a ban of 500 meters around the parliament, so we are not permitted to go there. And I quite like this gesture to say that even our tiny little walk is displaced at the very end, and to take that as a metaphor, a spatial metaphor for the, let's say, possible future. So, Georg.
Well, we are not at legislative, but at least we are at the core of the government here. That's the anyway, Andras. When I talked to a friend of mine who is part of the resistance movement against that what is happening in Slovakia, he said it's like Orban on speed. It's like that there is really kind of a difference between the strategies, and it's really something like as if a neoliberal manager of a company would try to immediately put everything under his control and change it. So there is differences in strategy, obviously, but there is differences in resistance as well. And nobody would have believed that such a change could happen that rapidly. So maybe Slovakia was the avant-garde for the United States even in that respect. But you will tell us what's happening, and you have mentioned something that maybe should be the end of this, that there has been a recent gathering, like trying to create something like a resolution because of other than Serbia, at least Hungary and Slovakia and Poland are part of the European Union, and that is addressing to that body, I think. But you will tell us more about that.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Andras Cefalvai. I'm an artist, and I also teach at the Academy of Fine Arts in Bratislava. Maybe just to shortly, I can say that fortunately the art academies and the universities right now have somehow a safe position. I am going to mostly talk about culture in Slovakia, and I am also here representing a group of artists, 7 of us, who started a now almost year-long collaboration and protest action against the Ministry of Culture in Slovakia, who have been doing some very destructive steps. I have some notes because there is also another para-institution that was established. It is called Open Culture. And it was established by a lot of people working in culture who, some of them, as you will hear, also lost their jobs because of some of the things that are happening in Slovakia. And they organized, they are even trying to build so-called cultural unions. And one of their works is a And this, I would actually say, that is an important thing, and I think each country should do this. And this is a precise recounting and a precise chronicling of what is happening. So I have just a part of this whole timeline, what happened in 1.5 years. I try to pick out the moments which are more understandable for you and don't maybe need a cultural context, because there are a lot of maybe nuances, and it is actually a you helped me, thank you. And but it's okay, it's fine, no problem. So it is actually a web page which you can scroll through, and it is pretty long. But just let me read a few things. So I call this the illiberal playbook. And this kind of illiberal playbook seems to play out in various countries, but it has like very similar patterns. And it seems to go after a certain capital, but of course this capital is not financial capital, but a kind of freedom capital, the people who have large amounts of freedom. And so I even kind of recall David Graeber, the anthropologist, who is talking about how we seem to be manipulated into believing that there is only one kind of politics, but there is even historic archaeological evidence that indeed there have been a much larger imagination of thinking about different ways of political living together, and there seems to be some kind of interest of thinking that there is only one. To maybe mention even a bit more exotic approach, in a book I read in the summer called Exo-Capital, they talk about capital or capitalism as a kind of non-human beast that is actually not dependent on a group of people wanting something, but it is outside, and it is its own interests and just trying to sustain itself. I don't know whether our Ministry of Culture and these people are like real maleficent actors or just having a revenge for some botched careers or something, but I definitely see certain patterns, and they go after our institutions. They go after the openings where they can see any openings where freedom can sprout. They immediately go after that. They try to police who can hold hands with whom, what goes on in our body, experiences the youth should be able to be confronted with. They kind of protect the children under some false pretenses. And of course, I hope you don't mind if I mention that I believe there exists a conservatism which concerns some core values that can be transported from deep history into the current times. Maybe we could mention something which Alan Badiou mentions, that there is a huge democratizational potential in St. Paul's writings, for example. But at the same time, very often what we usually call and see as conservatism is just the use of this vehicle or the form of it to sustain power. And I see this kind of illiberal conservatism, that it has nothing to do with values. It is more about practices of population control. So now I have a short report of what happened from 1st of January till around May of 1st of January 2024 till around May 2025, and then I will say a few things that happened after that, but you'll see why. Okay, so first, public statements of the Ministry of Culture: LGBTI plus NGOs will not receive a single cent more from the Ministry of Culture. 16th of January of 2024, the Ministry of Culture rejects funding for Kunsthalle, and the next day the director of the Kunsthalle is recalled. So right now, so at this moment, there is no state contemporary art gallery. In the 17th of January, also because of that, the open culture, which I talked about, starts to be funded. Already in the 22nd of January, the Ministry of Culture files criminal complaint in connection with calls for resignation of the ministry. Then, at the 26th of January, there is an open call, a petition to remove the Ministry of Culture, and it is signed by 188,000 people. So it is probably it is the most successful petition that ever happened in our country, and it is multiple times more than how many votes the party of which is the representative received in the elections a few months before. So just on the 9th of February, which is a month after the Kunsthalle is abolished, and all the workers were let go. 25th of March, next month, dismissal of the directors of Bibiana, this is a children's museum, and the Slovak National Library. Lukáš Machala introduces Bibiana staff to their newly appointed director Petra Flach, who is the neighbor of the Ministry of Culture. They are friends, and she has no professional acclaims that would lead her to be a director of this children's museum. Then in June, 20th of June, the Parliament approves a very harmful television act. 28th, the Parliament approves a harmful amendment to the Audiovisual Fund, which is problematic for the funding of films, and a lot of young filmmakers have been now robbed of the possibility for having funding. 3rd of July, in an interview, the Ministry of Culture attacks LGBTI people. And this is a quote: "Europe is dying out. New children aren't being born because there is an overabundance of LGBTI, and strangely it's among the white race." This is the end of the quote. Then, and the 1st of August, there is an amendment to, which is actually now law, for the funds of supporting arts, or an art council. And this art council was actually a very well-functioning body for supporting art for the past 10-12 years. Now, the Ministry of Culture had a minority number of members in the board. Now they introduced a few more people, so now they had a majority in the board. And while there were professional committees deciding about the funding, and it worked very well, from then on, now the board was overruling decisions. And it started with overruling mostly LGBTI plus projects, but then it started to be against almost everyone who is protesting. So suddenly, this year, a group of artists already organized an art exhibition about the artists who are the non-funded artists. Now there is a good amount of very good artists who did not receive funding due to protesting. Then on the 6th of August and the 7th of August, the director of the National Theatre is dismissed, and the director of the National Gallery are dismissed. What else? Okay, so this was in August. Then for a long time we didn't know what is happening, and suddenly, as there were only appointed directors, it was changing. There were extremely weird, non-professional people leading these institutions, and coming up with crazy managerial ideas. Some of the things. Okay, it's hard to put in words, but there are some stories that are would be maybe even too crazy to say in public. 100 employees leave the National Gallery on the 27th of January because they say that they are unable to continue this way, and basically almost all important cultural institutions are now without qualified staff. So only a few people remain. With a completely not transparent way, a new director is appointed. This appointment happened between closed doors before a committee, but somehow it got out that one of these committee members is a close friend of the director, of the would-be director. So they unfortunately had to repeat, and they just repeated the same process without this one member. It was still behind doors. Still, the director of the National Gallery was chosen by a hockey player and other people who had no professional record of knowing anything about art. To mention one more interesting thing about the Art Council, one of the new appointed board members was ex-Secret Service member. So this is the kind of education you need to become an important player in contemporary Slovak culture. And this is where our artistic action started. So open culture was already making a lot of big protests, but seven of us artists decided that we want to also make this problem of the National Gallery visible, and we started a group of talks which was just under the garages which were next to the gallery. So it was a kind of very visible place. There was a very big billboard, or kind of the side of the garages which we used as a billboard space, and we were showing messages to this gallery. And one of the important things is that, of course, they will go, these kind of politics always goes against institutions and tries to get them to work for them. And what I kind of believe, and this might be a lesson different from others, is not about occupation, but about transplanting the community. Because what happened is that right now nobody goes into the National Gallery. It really had a huge loss of revenue, even this kind of technical thing. But what we built is we had these meetings where 300, 400 people showed up who liked to go to the National Galleries. And what we said is that we care for the institutions, but we don't care about the buildings. We don't want to occupy the building, but we want to rebuild, and we rebuild it outside the walls. Yes. Well, I just have one more biblical note. And this is just that even the Bible, when it happens in the Father's temple, the tables are overturned. So maybe there is a moment when direct action will need to happen.
Thank you, Andras, for this wrap-up. I doubt actually that we would bring 188,000 people to sign a petition against an action against the cultural minister in Austria here. So you can be proud of that, I think. But anyway, what we are seeing here as well is that all of the things that you are saying are starting, if you the party that is at the moment having the most votes in the polls in the last 3 months has bombarded the parliament and the ministers with questions about funding of civic society, about funding of cultural institutions, and so on and so on. So this is already prepared. But in contrary to the strategy that is run in Hungary, the strategy of your government seems to decapitate and put new people on the post and everything will be right. So that is not so much affecting public space already. It is not so much, so to say, going deeper into like syllabi of education and so on, but it is really about governance and government. So I think the strategies that we are seeing in this all have the same kind of ideological bias, have the same kind of rhetorics, but the strategy are fairly different in all of the countries. So I think that's pretty interesting. What do you? There is a split in the electoral between Bratislava and the countryside. How do you think that the protests will go on, actually? And you talked about a petition to the European Council. I think that you should maybe exemplify a bit.
Yeah, so and also another important thing is that this open culture is starting to be very well organized, and there was an interesting conference where other international organs were invited, and we were talking a lot about what we can do. And there is something called the Bratislava Declaration. It's from May 2025, which asks the European Union to have some kind of a European Cultural Freedom Act or something that would ensure that there are certain unquestionable cultural freedoms. So this is one thing which I myself find as a good proposal, and this is one thing that I think could be good. At the same time, yes, there are some differences, and one of the differences is that it really, I think, perhaps even unexpectedly from the government side, it brought the cultural sector together. So if they wanted to disassemble it, I think they really didn't succeed, because there was just really a very little amount of intellectual collaboration. They couldn't find people for these positions when they were searching for a political nominee for the gallery who would be respected among the community. So as far as I know, in Hungary it was a bit different, that they with the tempo it happened, they could usually find someone who had maybe the artistic niveau, but would work with the government, and this fortunately doesn't happen. Of course, it has some other kind of problems, because right now perhaps we could be critical about a lot of things that happened before, or we could be critical about what was going on in the National Gallery before this government. Right now, this kind of problems are frozen, and we try to act together and get rid of this problem in the first place.
Well, for sure. I mean, there is this self-censorship is quite an interesting thing, because of that suppresses ordinary critical discourse in the name of solidarity. But Eva, I will try. I will not open it. I will try to finish and give Eva Majewska the word, because we are all freezing a bit, I think. But anyway, Eva, you might. You might talk about a different experience. You have been partly yourself a victim of the Kaczynski, so to say, restructuring of Polish university societies, and you have been fighting against that. You have been exiled, more or less. Is there hope that things will change after you had these elections that brought at least seemingly more democratic party to the government, and some of the institutions have people that we all would in the leading functions that we all would respect internationally as profound experts? Is there a structural change possible, you think? Give us some hope in the end.
Yeah, this seems like a very Polish thing to do, to bring hope. So let me begin with, to warm us up a little bit, with a very old joke, almost as old as myself. It comes from the times when, after the beginning of Solidarność movement in 1980, in 1981, the communist authorities installed a martial state law, so basically a state of war in Poland. And one of the popular jokes was that we should build a border with China. Poland should build a border with China on Ural. So, that's kind of, a bit ugly and imperialistic, but if you look at the map, Poland has no chance whatsoever of building that kind of border. And basically, it was a way of kind of, building an absurd reference point. But absolute reference point is one thing. So we need to, and here I need to reference one of my favorite Polish, Jewish, German intellectuals, Rosa Luxemburg, who wrote in her correspondence, very large correspondence from jail usually, that we can't afford, the people who really are oppressed, they can't afford being, not melancholic maybe, but being negative, being catastrophic. People who are actually oppressed, they can't resign from fight. They have to fight, basically. There is no way that they can stop. So for her, the optimism was a kind of militant optimism. It was an optimism coming from the fact that you have to wake another day and struggle. So there is a level of vitality that is being preserved by this necessity to fight. And I believe that this is what we very much have in Poland. Also, if you look at the historical tradition, there is a lot of uprising and resistance. Basically, we resist everything. So it's kind of a national tradition. But to introduce you to Poland a little bit, so it's going to be a while, the first lines of Polish national anthem, I'm not a nationalist really, and I don't know the anthem probably till the end, but the beginning is very interesting because it says Poland is not over yet. So this is a very funny beginning for a national anthem, no? Normally a state would be like, we'll have this big state or great eagles fly or whatever else, and then this country is built on this premise of like, it's not over yet. So you have to imagine Polish people kind of waking up and be like, so that gives you a little bit of a kind of Central European, I think it's more general than just Poland, and we know it's more general than Poland, sort of sense of precarity of the existence, not just of individuals, but also of entire countries and institutions, and I believe in the context of also the war in Ukraine, also the right-wing governments in the majority, I think, of our region, we sort of apply this perspective, no? That we have been there, but we also haven't been there. So that's not the key. Basically, the key is more on the level of interpersonal relationships, trying to survive, trying to build cultural, but also existential and familial sort of references. I'm sorry, I'm very touched for some reason. So I'm thinking of solidarity a lot. That's another topic, because you kindly invited me and all the guests here, and I'm very proud and happy to be here. But I'm thinking also about solidarity as how reciprocal it is, and how instead of just, from up to bottom support, solidarity offers a possibility of exchanging. So I was thinking very much while being prepared. Okay, we have to move? Yeah.
So the President of the Republic is crossing our road.
Oh. Okay, I'll stay here. So not to make it much longer, although now I'm really inspired to stay longer here for some reason. But
he's a respectable person.
Yes, I'm thinking with bell hooks now, with the African American feminist whom I admire a lot, and I had the honor to translate. And she writes in Feminist Theory from Margin to Center about how support is vertical. It comes from like the powerful to the disempowered. And it might risk to petrify the situation, while solidarity is very much on the horizontal level. So I was very happy that the word solidarity was also appearing in the invitation here. And I was thinking, okay, Polish academia is censored. Slovak academia is censored. Hungarian academia is I don't know what, because it's beyond maybe censorship. I was thinking also of Israel and of Russia, two states who have launched incredible war machines and genocidal intentions at least, but also practice, I think. And they have censored their own people as well. So they don't only kill, but they also make it impossible to discuss, to negotiate, to speak in their respective country. And I'm thinking it's necessary that we remember that there are two, one big, one smaller country where you can't speak, basically. You can't speak about the politics of the country. But also I was thinking about the recent protests. So in Poland, for instance, most recent cases of censoring academia were against the students who were occupying the universities in solidarity with Palestine. So they were immediately coded as Hamas and terror supporters immediately. So there was this, and then the rector of University of Warsaw brings police to take it down and bring criminal cases against students. So we had 6 students, I think, who had, no more, 20 students who had criminal cases which were closed, so they are perceived as innocent. And in Krakow, there are 6 students who are suspended in their studentship, basically students' rights. So this is the recent. But then, obviously, if we look at the Kaczyński regime, there is more topics. So one topic is being a representative of LGBTQ community. So we all know Tomasz Kukliński, I think, a very fantastic philosopher and art historian and critic. So in his habilitation process, it's an academic degree that you know here, I think, but it's not everywhere, like second doctorate, you could say. So in the protocol of Tomek's defense, let's say, it was written that somebody said, we cannot give him the title because you know who he is, and they meant, and he is gay, so he doesn't get it. So basically, still in the 2000s, it was possible in Poland to deny somebody an academic title because of their sexual orientation. Luckily for Tomek, the Polish law says that you can't discriminate against people, so basically he could fight back and he received the habilitation. But this is a very atrocious case, and we have several other cases similar to that. So a person is gay, and there we go. There is a denial of, and some of those cases are recent, so it's 5 years ago, 6 years ago, so it's not early 2000s only or earlier. There have been a wave of feminist protests that you might know about in Poland due to reproductive rights specifically and the abortion law. So in the course of this protests, the word wypierdalać, which is a very nasty swear word like get the fuck out of here or something like that, became the slogan, because when the law about abortion was made more restrictive, women got desperate, and even the linguist specialists, old professors of law, were saying, okay, the reality is such that not using this word would discredit our perception of truth, basically, of reality. So there was this kind of defense. So a professor, a feminist literature study professor from Szczecin, was actually dragged through a very complicated disciplinary case, and the Minister of Higher Education of the time, Mr. Czarnek, was speaking publicly about the necessity to fire this person for using that one word, which was at the time, as I said, a common slogan. It was nothing exceptional for a person to say. So she had this kind of trial, but what she did later was she became a member of an incredibly important Titles and Degrees Commission, and there she was attacked very openly by a very right-wing, very conservative, but in a bad sense, if you want, professor, who was calling her names, who was discrediting her for no good reason. He was basically defamating her. So what she did, she took him to court, and she won, interestingly. So Poland is more dialectical, I would say. There is more kind of, although Kaczyński was learning from Orban, and he also took very slow steps to demolish different institutions, in a sense that, he made them unfunctional. But even the legal system, you have probably read about how Kaczyński was destroying the legal system, how he was making executive omnipowerful and legislative and juridical system underpowered, let's say. Okay, this was happening. A lot of judges were discriminated against, sent to some small places from bigger cities or across Poland because of their disagreement with the policy, so that was happening. On the other hand, one writer, Żulczyk is his family name, one day decided to call President Duda, so the former Polish president of state, an imbecile, because Duda presented such lack of legal knowledge that this writer was like, okay, in this situation I have no other choice than to call the president of my state imbecile. I'm not proud of it, but this is it. So the lawyers of the president of Poland decided to take him to court, which they did, and then in this court a judge declared, yes, in these circumstances I see no other way than calling the president an imbecile. So we have, and we are maybe the only country in the world, I didn't check it, but I think so, with a state decision saying that, yes, under certain circumstances, you can call a president an imbecile. So I'm not necessarily advising you to call this kind of names different people you dislike or criticize, but what I'm trying to show is that even within, it's a little bit like in Asterix stories, no? The whole Europe is taken by Roman Empire. Maybe not entirely, yes? So seeing those little cracks, those little villages as in the Asterix story, but also little cracks on the surface of authoritarianism is a super important thing. And also, I'm thinking now of the students in Poland, but also here in Austria and in Germany, who were protesting against what was happening in Gaza, regardless the violence. You know that today the United Nations asked German authorities to demand that the police stops incarcerating and violence against the students. So we have different topics. In Poland, the academics were deprived financing and were harshly defamated because of their investigations of the Polish involvement in Holocaust. This was something that Kaczyński was obsessed with. He tried to ban research that was investigating into how Polish people were participating in the Holocaust. And interestingly, and also for me, I was terrified when I discovered that, he launched this law exactly on an anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz camp. So, you know, some people were thinking, okay, this is an accident, he had other elements, but this date, you know, to choose this specific date for me, constitutes quite a big proof of, like, no, the intention was actually to really, so there is this very anti-Semitic part. On the other hand, Kaczyński is quite good friend with Netanyahu, so again, another contradiction, no? But this fear of, so he was calling researchers who investigated this collaboration, let's say, of Polish people with the Nazi occupiers, anti-Polish. So there is Professor Barbara Engelking, whose research was condemned by all the Minister of Higher Education in Kaczyński government, and the funding for entire Institute of Philosophy and Sociology of the Polish Academy of Science was cut because they didn't want to speak against her. So when they were asked to fire her or something, they were like, no, she's doing decent research, so therefore the whole But interestingly, a collection of funding, it's kind of crowdfunding situation, over a week they gathered enough money to continue for the next year or something. So it was really also quite beautiful solidarity. But I'm thinking about institutions and how we should fight or not fight for them. Because on one hand, it's nice and good to do things in public, also in the street, outside of the institutions. On the yet another hand, giving away institutions means that you give a lot of power and resources to the hands that might really beat you up in the end. So I'm wondering about a strategy that would be transversal, that would not resign from any of these, that would build the occupations or the public gatherings or other alternative or even avant-garde forms of debate, but also that would keep having the institutions and keep influencing them, because I think one of the elements of this long march of the right wing is to take over institutions and execute the power that they give all over the country. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much, Eva. And I think this is really a common denominator, that we should not give up thinking about statehood and constitutionality and not think about giving up institutions, because it is the takeover of institutions and the claim for changing institutionality within the institutions that is really the most troublesome in all these changes that we see. It's not the rhetorics. It might be that there is other things very, very important, but the point where one can maybe address real powerful protest is within institutions. And that's why I think it is so important that you as institutions now gather and try to create something like at least a platform of debate and maybe protest that fortifies each other's strategies, though, as we have seen, everything is so different from case to case and from nation to nation. And about you've been talking about Palestine and Gaza and so on and so on. Very, 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 very important. But we see the kernel of all of this happening already at the borders. And I'm very happy that the students are not just talking about this, but they're getting knowledge about Europe, because I think it is crucial to get knowledge about the semi-peripheries that are around us and that are the new target of authoritarianism, and we do not know much about each other, and this was a call to get more knowledge about each other. Thank you very much for being part of that. I would now immediately bring you, with the last question, because of then we have to go to the goulash in the Mensa and talk there.
Yes. I just want to quickly oppose what you said about Israel and Russia. It doesn't work. I'm really, really sorry. Israel is a democracy. Russia is an authoritarian state. I'm sorry. This does not work. And I think it's really not serious to bring this up here. Same story with the so-called genocide. You know, this is the blood libel of our times.
Yeah.
And
you ask your question. I would like to respond to you.
This is the blood libel of our times. And I think it's really sad that you're bringing this up from a Polish perspective.
Yeah.
From a country that actually has a long history.
And has the author of the notion of genocide, Rafał Lemkin, who gives the conditions of possibility of genocide. All of them are fulfilled in Gaza. So I'm sorry, what you are doing right now is undermining a perspective that has been built in a long process also by Israeli and Jewish intellectuals who were verifying every day, do we have a genocide there already or not? And unfortunately, all authorities agree today that yes. So I'm really sorry, but you are making post-truth kind of disinformative practice. And I don't want this discussion to continue.
I'm sorry, usually I don't appreciate to be interrupted like this. I think it's really sad that you bring this up. And actually I have not expected this kind of subject here. And I think it's strange that...
I think so too.
And I think it's very...
Thank you.
And I think it's also very strange that you actually think that you are the one who can decide whether what is happening.
I am not the one. It's the International Court of Justice, it's the International Criminal Code. No. Yes, check the newspapers. I mean, seriously. This is.
Let me say that I very much appreciate this debate here in the end, because of it proves that we can have antagonisms and we can talk about them. So I'm very, maybe even happy that this came up here, and that is part of a university, let's say, Veranstaltung here. And I think it is really time. One must talk about these issues. One can talk about these issues, but maybe now it's time to talk about other modes of solidarity and go to the Mensa, and maybe we have time to talk about these issues more seriously there. But I'm happy that these issues can come up in such a context as well. So thank you both.
And I have to thank you, Georg, for this wonderful moderation through the whole evening. Sorry that it took so long, but there's a need, and so more thankful for your patience. And as Georg already said, in the Mensa they prepared different types of warm food, vegan version, one with meat, and some drinks around. So let's go back there and maybe even continue the discussions. Thank you for your patience and your participation.
So thank you and bye. Goodbye. Thank you. Bye.